American pilots attacked what they thought were German targets. But these weren't Germans. They were Soviet allies. Guns blazed. Planes exploded. Friends killed friends by mistake. On November 7, 1944, America and the Soviet Union fought each other in a battle that nobody knows about. A terrible accident that almost destroyed their alliance forever. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. November 7, 1944. The sun rises over a small airbase in Italy. American pilots walk across the tarmac, their breath visible in the cold morning air. They are about to fly one of the most important missions of their lives. These men belong to the 1st Fighter Group of the United States Army Air Forces. They fly the P-38 Lightning, a powerful twin-engine fighter plane. The P-38 is fast, deadly, and feared by the enemy. The Germans call it der Gabelschwanzteufel, the fork-tailed devil. Today's mission is simple but dangerous. Fly deep into enemy territory. Find German targets. Destroy them. Come back alive. Leading this mission is Colonel Clarence Theodore Edwinson. He is an experienced pilot with many successful missions. His men trust him completely. They know he will bring them home safe. The briefing room is filled with tension. Intelligence officers point at maps on the wall. They show the pilots where to go. They describe what the targets look like. German airfields. German convoys. German positions in the Balkans. Look for the landmarks, the intelligence officer says. You'll know the target when you see it. The pilots nod. They memorize every detail. In aerial combat, one mistake can mean death. But there's a problem with this briefing. The intelligence is incomplete. The maps are not perfectly accurate. The descriptions are vague. The pilots don't know it yet, but this poor intelligence will lead to disaster. The briefing ends. The pilots walk out into the morning light. Some smoke cigarettes. Others write quick letters home, just in case. Every combat pilot knows that each mission could be their last. They put on their flight gear. Heavy leather jackets. Oxygen masks. Parachutes strapped to their backs. Helmets with radio headsets. Each piece of equipment could save their life. The crew chiefs have been working all night. They've checked every engine. Every gun. Every system. The P-38s are ready for combat. Engines roar to life. One by one, the P-38 Lightnings taxi down the runway. The twin engines create a distinctive sound. It's a sound that means freedom to some, and terror to others. Edwinson's plane lifts off first. Behind him, his squadron follows. They form up in the sky, a deadly formation of American air power. 24 fighters climbing into the morning sky. They turn east, heading toward Yugoslavia. Below them, the blue waters of the Adriatic Sea sparkle in the sunlight. Ahead of them lies enemy territory. The flight is long. The pilots maintain radio silence, communicating only when necessary. They scan the sky constantly for enemy fighters. German Mi-109s and FW-190s could attack at any moment. The P-38s roar over the mountains of Serbia. The landscape below is beautiful but deadly. German forces control this area. Every hilltop could hide anti-aircraft guns. Every valley could be a trap. Colonel Edwinson scans the ground below. His eyes are sharp, trained to spot the smallest movement. Then he sees it. A cloud of white steam rises from a valley. It's moving. A train. Edwinson leans forward in his cockpit. Through his gun sight, he can see it clearly now. A German steam locomotive pulling freight cars. It's not their main target, but it's too good to ignore. In wartime, every enemy supply line matters. That train could be carrying ammunition. Weapons. Food for German soldiers. Fuel for German tanks. Destroying it will help the war effort. Let's go get it, boys. Edwin's son calls over the radio. His voice is calm but excited. Every enemy target destroyed is one less weapon the Germans can use. Edwin's son rolls his P-38 into a dive. The plane drops like a stone. Behind him, his pilots follow. The formation stays tight. They've practiced this 1,000 times. The ground rushes up fast. The steam train grows larger in their sights. Edwin's son can see the locomotive clearly now. The engineer probably has no idea what's about to happen. The wind screams past the cockpit. The altimeter spins downward. 3,000 feet. 2,000 feet. 1,000 feet. The perfect attack altitude. The colonel's finger tightens on the trigger. His guns come alive. 4.50 caliber machine guns and 120 mm cannon fire together. The sound is deafening even inside the cockpit. Bullets and shells slam into the locomotive. Metal tears. Steam explodes from ruptured pipes. The train is being ripped apart by American firepower. Other P-38s join in. The entire train is hit. Cars derail. The locomotive shudders and stops. Steam pours from dozens of holes. It's completely destroyed. Good shooting, someone calls over the radio. The P-38s pull up, climbing back into the sky. Edwin's son allows himself a small smile. One target down. But the Germans are not helpless. Black puffs appear in the sky around the American planes. Flak. Anti-aircraft fire. The Germans have been waiting. Hidden gun positions open fire. Shells explode all around the P-38 formation. Shrapnel tears through the air. Some pieces hit the thin aluminum skin of the fighters. The 88 mm flak guns are deadly accurate. German gun crews have years of experience. They know how to lead a target. They know the exact altitude to set their fuses. Everyone, get low. Edwin's son shouts into his radio. The pilots react instantly. They push their control sticks forward. The P-38s dive toward the ground, trying to escape the flak. But it's too late for one plane. A shell explodes directly next to a P-38. The blast tears into the aircraft. Flames erupt from the engine. The plane is mortally wounded. I'm hit. I'm going down. The pilot's voice fills the radio. Terror and desperation mix in his words. The other pilots hear the fear in their comrade's voice. They want to help. But there's nothing they can do. In aerial combat, a damaged plane is on its own. Edwin's son levels his plane just above the treetops. He looks back, searching for his man. He hopes to see a parachute. A sign that the pilot escaped. Instead, he sees a ball of fire. The burning P-38 slams into a hillside. The explosion is massive. Metal fragments fly in every direction. No one could survive that. Does anyone see a chute? Edwin's son asks. His voice is steady, but his heart is heavy. He waits. Every pilot hopes someone else will say yes. But no one does. The radio is silent. That silence tells them everything. Their friend is dead. Killed by German guns. Negative, sir, someone finally responds. Fury fills Edwinson's heart. They've lost a man. A friend. A brother in arms. The Germans will pay for this. They will pay dearly. Copy, Edwin's son says simply. The remaining P-38s continue east. They fly low over the Serbian mountains. The mission must continue. They still have targets to destroy. The pilots are more alert now. More cautious. They've been reminded that death is always close in combat. The mountains seem endless. Peak after peak. Valley after valley. The pilots navigate by landmarks and their compasses. There are no GPS systems in 1944. Navigation is done by skill and experience. Suddenly, the mountains end. The ground drops away below them. A huge valley opens up. And there, in the center, is an airfield. Edwinson's eyes widen. This looks exactly like the target described in their briefing. The layout matches. The size is right. This must be it. He scans the area quickly. Roads. Buildings. Parked aircraft. And then he sees it. A long convoy of vehicles moving on the road below. Trucks. Tanks. Military vehicles heading north toward Belgrade. There's no doubt in Edwinson's mind. This is a German convoy. This is their target. Everything matches what intelligence told them. His anger over losing his pilot boils over. This is their chance for revenge. They'll make the Germans pay for every American life lost. There are those sons of bitches. Edwinson calls over the radio. Blue flight, get that German convoy. Red and yellow to the airfield. Yes, sir, his pilots respond. The P-38 split up. Some head for the convoy. Others turn toward the airfield. They are about to attack with everything they have. The pilots check their weapons. Guns armed. Bombs ready. They're committed to the attack now. But there's one thing Colonel Edwinson doesn't know. One terrible, tragic mistake. These aren't Germans. These are Soviets. American allies. Friends fighting the same enemy. Down on the ground, Soviet soldiers are celebrating. Today is November 7th, a special day. It's the anniversary of the October Revolution, one of the most important dates in Soviet history. The Red Army convoy rolls along the road. Soldiers sing patriotic songs. Soviet flags fly from the vehicles. Red banners with the hammer and sickle wave in the wind. Everyone is happy. These Soviet soldiers are allies of the Americans. They've been fighting the Nazis together for years. They've been pushing the Germans back toward Berlin. They're on the same side. The Yugoslav partisans are celebrating with them. These brave resistance fighters have been battling German occupation since 1941. They've suffered terribly. But now, with Soviet and American help, victory is near. The whole convoy is filled with joy and music. Some soldiers play accordions. Others dance. They're celebrating liberation. Freedom. The coming end of the war. Many of these soldiers are young. Some are teenagers. They've seen terrible things in this war. Their country was invaded. Their cities were destroyed. Millions of their people were killed. But they survived. And now they're winning. Then someone hears it. A distant rumble. Aircraft engines. Soviet soldiers look up at the sky. They see the P-38s flying in the distance. Smiles break out on their faces. American planes. They're allies. The soldiers have heard about American air power. They know these planes have been bombing German positions. Helping the Soviet advance. The soldiers wave. Some point at the aircraft. They're happy to see their American friends. Some even cheer. The celebrations continue. The convoy marches on. A few soldiers notice the planes breaking formation. The P-38s are turning. Coming toward them. Most soldiers aren't worried. Why would they be? These are friendly aircraft. Maybe the Americans are just flying close to say hello. Maybe they're escorting the convoy. But one soldier understands. He's seen air attacks before. He knows what a diving aircraft looks like. His eyes go wide with horror. No, no, they are about to strafe us, he screams. His warning is lost in the noise and music. Most soldiers don't hear him. Those who do think he's made a mistake. The lightnings bear down on the convoy. The roar of their engines gets louder and louder. A few Soviet soldiers realize what's happening. Panic fills their hearts. They grab Soviet flags from their comrades. They lift them high into the air. They wave them desperately. Stop. We are Soviets. We are allies. They wave the red flags as hard as they can. The flags are huge. Bright red. Impossible to miss. Surely the American pilots will see. Surely they'll understand the mistake. But there's not enough time. The P-38s are coming too fast. They're already committed to their attack run. The American pilots don't see the flags. Or if they do, they don't recognize them in time. From high altitude, everything looks small. Details are hard to see. They pull their triggers. American bullets tear into the Soviet convoy. .50 caliber rounds rip through trucks. Each bullet is as long as a finger and can punch through metal like paper. Shells explode against tanks. Soviet soldiers are cut down where they stand. The flags they were waving fall to the ground, stained with blood. The convoy erupts into chaos. Soldiers scatter in every direction. Vehicles swerve off the road. Men dive for cover. But there's nowhere to hide. The road becomes a killing zone. Bullets tear through everything. Metal. Wood. Flesh. Nothing can stop the American firepower. The P-38s make pass after pass. Their guns never stop firing. The sound is like thunder. Shell casings rain from the aircraft, clinking on the ground below. Then the bombs fall. Massive explosions blast through the convoy. Trucks are thrown into the air. Tanks are flipped over. The destruction is total. Soviet soldiers who survived the first attack try to help their wounded comrades. They hear screaming. Crying. Men calling for help. But the American planes come back again. And again. The medical trucks are hit. Supplies scatter across the road. Wounded men lie in the open, unable to move. The road becomes a scene of devastation. Smoke rises from burning vehicles. Bodies lie everywhere. The celebration has turned into a nightmare. At the nearby airfield, Soviet soldiers hear the explosions. They see smoke rising in the distance. They know something terrible is happening. Lookouts scan the sky. Then they see them. Aircraft approaching fast. Many aircraft. Man the guns, someone screams. Alarm bells ring across the airfield. Soviet soldiers run to their positions. Anti-aircraft guns swing toward the sky. They don't know these are American planes. They just know they're under attack. They know their comrades are dying. They know they must defend themselves. The AA guns open fire. Tracers streak into the sky. The Soviets are defending their airfield with everything they have. In the air, Colonel Edwinson leads his men toward the airfield. In his mind, this is a German Luftwaffe base. He thinks he's looking at German Bf-109 fighters parked on the ground. Anti-aircraft fire sweeps through the American formation. Shells explode around the P-38s. Some planes are hit, but they don't break off. These pilots are professionals. They've flown through German flak many times. They know how to handle it. Keep moving. Don't fly straight. Make yourself a hard target. Edwinson lines up his sights on the parked aircraft below. He pulls the trigger. 20mm shells and .50 caliber bullets pour from the Lightning's guns. They smash into the earth. They tear across the rows of parked planes. The Soviet Yak-9 fighters are hit. Fuel tanks rupture. Ammunition explodes. Planes that survived months of combat are destroyed in seconds. The P-38s can hear enemy bullets hitting their own planes. Metal strikes metal with a sharp crackling sound. Some pilots feel their aircraft shudder as rounds hit home. Pull up. Edwinson orders. The Lightnings pull out of their dive. They climb back into the sky. All except one. Second Lieutenant Eldon Carlson yanks on his control stick with all his strength. But his plane won't respond. He's taken too much damage from the Soviet guns. She's not coming up. Carlson screams over the radio. He tries everything. Full power on the engines. Trimming the elevators. Nothing works. The controls are dead. His P-38 flies much lower than it should. Every anti-aircraft gun on the airfield focuses on him. They can't miss at this range. Bullets and shells tear into Carlson's plane. His wings are shredded. His elevators are destroyed. Control is gone. Carlson knows he's going to die. He's too low to bail out. Even if he could open the canopy, his parachute wouldn't have time to deploy. The P-38 crashes 1 kilometer from the airfield. It explodes on impact. The fireball rises into the sky. Carlson never had a chance. Edwinson sees the fireball. Another one of his men is dead. His anger grows even stronger. The fury burns in his chest. Build some altitude and go in again, he orders. They're going to make the Germans pay for every American life lost. They're going to destroy this airfield completely. Down on the airfield, Soviet soldiers are fighting for their lives. Anti-aircraft guns keep firing into the sky. Shell casings pile up around the gun positions. They think they're fighting German FW-189 reconnaissance planes. The twin-boom design looks similar to German aircraft. In the chaos of battle, identification is difficult. But Red Army pilots know better. They can see the distinctive twin-boom shape of the P-38. That's not a German plane. That's American. Still, they're under attack. Their comrades are dying. Their base is being destroyed. They have no choice but to defend themselves. Combat alert. All pilots, scramble, the commander shouts. Soviet pilots run through fire and smoke toward their Yak-9 fighters. Explosions burst around them. Debris flies through the air. Some pilots are hit by shrapnel but keep running. They have to get into the air fast. On the ground, they're sitting ducks. In the air, they have a chance. The first 2 planes to start are piloted by Lieutenant Kravonigic and Junior Lieutenant Shipulya. They're experienced pilots and close friends. They've flown many missions together. As they taxi toward the runway, Kravonigic looks up. The American fighters are turning back for another attack run. Shipulya, faster. Kravonigic urges. They line up on the runway. Both pilots push their throttles to maximum power. The Yak-9s roar down the concrete and lift off into the air. The runway is cratered from bombs. They dodge the holes. One wrong move and they'll crash. The 2 Soviet fighters skim the treetops, racing away from the incoming P-38s. They're trying to gain speed and altitude. They need both to survive. Behind them, the rest of the Soviet squadron takes off in a large group. But they're not as lucky. They're climbing slowly. Grouped together. Easy targets for experienced American pilots. Edwinson sees the Soviet planes taking off. In his mind, these are German fighters. Enemy aircraft that need to be destroyed before they can threaten his men. Get those planes before they gain altitude, he orders. His men don't question. They trust their commander. They dive in at maximum speed. Soviet anti-aircraft fire continues streaming from the ground. The Americans fly through it all. Crosshairs line up on target. Triggers are pulled. American bullets and shells tear through the Soviet planes. One Yak-9 is destroyed instantly. It explodes in midair. Pieces of the aircraft rain down. The pilot never knew what hit him. Several other Yaks are damaged. Engines smoking. Controls damaged. They break into evasive maneuvers, trying to escape. The P-38s soar overhead, preparing for another pass. The Soviet pilots are brave. They don't run. They turn to fight, even though they're outnumbered and caught at a disadvantage. But one Soviet pilot sees an opportunity. He watches an American plane pull out of its dive. The P-38 is climbing, exposed, not maneuvering. In a split second, the Soviet pilot makes his decision. He pulls his Yak upward and pulls the trigger. His guns come alive. Tracers stream toward the American plane. The P-38 flies straight through his burst of fire. Bullets rip through the American plane. They hit the fuel tanks. It bursts into flames immediately. The lightning spins violently out of control. Black smoke trails behind it. The plane is completely engulfed in fire. The pilot inside is Second Lieutenant Philip Brewer. He's only 22 years old. He tries to escape, but he can't. The plane is spinning too fast. The G-forces pin him to his seat. The canopy won't open. He's trapped. Brewer knows he's going to die. These are his last moments. He thinks of home. His family. His younger brother who's also in the war. His P-38 plummets to Earth. It crashes northeast of the Soviet airfield. The explosion can be seen for miles. There is no parachute. No survival. No hope. The remaining P-38s gain altitude, climbing out of range of the anti-aircraft guns. Colonel Edwinson looks down. He sees one enemy plane burning. But he also sees 2 of his own men dead on the ground. 2 more American families will receive telegrams. 2 more mothers will cry. This fight is much tougher than expected. The Germans are fighting back hard. They're skilled pilots. Well trained. Determined. A lot of fighters incoming. Edwinson calls. Make a defensive circle. We're shooting our way out. The P-38s form a defensive formation. They circle, each plane protecting the others. It's a standard tactic when outnumbered. Meanwhile, Kravonigic and Shipulya race low over the trees. They're accelerating to over 400 km per hour. The Yak-9 is shaking from the speed. They escaped the initial attack, but now they're isolated from their squadron. They see the American planes attacking the helpless convoy below. Smoke rises. Explosions flash. They know they have to do something. Those are their comrades down there. Their brothers. Their friends. The pair of Yak-9s pull up into a steep vertical climb. They're heading straight into the fight. 2 against many. For the first time in history, American and Soviet fighters are about to face each other in all-out air combat. Allies turned into enemies by a terrible mistake. Shipulya, attack. I'll cover you. Kravonigic orders. Roger that. Shipulya responds. His voice is steady. He's scared, but he won't show it. He's a Soviet fighter pilot. He has a duty. Shipulya races in at high speed. He sweeps toward a P-38 and opens fire. His 20mm cannon and .50 caliber machine gun send bullets streaking through the air. His shots hit one of the P-38's twin fuselages. The American plane is damaged but not destroyed. It wobbles but keeps flying. Shipulya zooms past at incredible speed. He turns away to prepare for another attack run. He needs to come around for another pass. But the American pilot radios for help. 2 circling P-38s dive to rescue him. They see their friend is in trouble. They're coming to save him. Kravonagik spots the enemy fighters diving on his wingman. He shouts into his radio. Shipyulya, maneuver. Break right. It's just in time. Shipyulya pulls hard to the right in the last second. American bullets pass through the space where he was just flying. If he'd been 1 second slower, he'd be dead. He twists and dodges. The enemy is right on his tail. He can hear bullets hitting his plane. Metal tearing. He can't shake them. I can't get rid of him. Shipyulya calls desperately. Hang on. I'm coming. Kravonagik responds. Kravonagik flies as fast as his Yak-9 can go. His heart pounds with every burst of tracers aimed at his friend. He pushes the engine to its limit. The temperature gauge climbs into the red. He doesn't care. He's coming in fast. His crosshairs line up with one of the two P-38s chasing Shipyulya. Kravonagik pulls the trigger. His bullets streak across the sky. They narrowly miss the American plane. Just inches away. The American pilot sees the danger and immediately breaks off the attack. He's not going to risk getting shot down. He pulls away. But Kravonagik doesn't chase him. He has a more important target. He moves on to the second P-38, the one still hounding Shipyulya. He takes careful aim and opens fire. His rounds are perfectly placed. They hit the Lightning's twin booms. Both engines are struck. The American plane bursts into flame. Smoke pours from both engines. The P-38 flies on for a moment, completely out of control. The pilot knows he's done. His plane is dying. He opens the canopy and bails out. The wind tears him from the cockpit. His parachute opens. He'll survive. But his burning plane crashes 8 kilometers north of the Soviet airfield. Thank you, Commander, Shipyulya says, relief in his voice. You're welcome. Prepare to fight. Kravonagik warns. They brace themselves. They're still horribly outnumbered. The P-38s are circling. Looking for revenge. But then reinforcements arrive. The rest of the Soviet squadron bursts onto the scene. They open fire immediately, scattering the American formation. Tracers fill the sky. Kravonagik is relieved. Now they have a chance. Now it's a fair fight. The two Soviet pilots rush back into the fight. The sky is filled with aircraft. Tracers. Smoke. It's complete chaos. But in the chaos of the dogfight, they get separated. One moment they're together. The next, they're alone. Kravonagik sets his sights on an enemy P-38. He chases it through the swirling melee. Both planes spiral upward through the air, each pilot trying to get the advantage. The American pilot is good. Experienced. He tries every trick. Barrel rolls. Scissors. Split-S maneuvers. But Kravonagik is better. The P-38 is fast, but it's not optimized for low-altitude flying. It's designed for high-altitude bomber escort. Kravonagik's Yak-9 is perfect for this kind of fight. He quickly catches up. The American is right in his sights. Just a little closer. A little more. Down on the ground, a Soviet anti-aircraft gun crew is still firing. They're shooting at every aircraft they think is enemy. Their guns are hot from continuous firing. In the confusion of the battle, they make a terrible mistake. Whether it's bad aim, panic, or just overenthusiasm, we'll never know. They send a volley of fire directly at Kravonagik's Yak-9. Kravonagik gets no warning. His own side shoots him down. Friendly fire. The cruelest death in war. The shells hit his plane directly. The Yak-9 disintegrates in the air. Wings torn off. Fuselage shattered. Pieces of the aircraft fall like rain. Shipyulya tries to raise his friend on the radio. "Commander? Commander, respond." He looks around frantically. Then he sees it. A burning wreck plummeting to the ground. Pieces falling. His commander is gone. His friend is dead. Killed by his own side. Shipyulya shakes the loss from his mind. He wants to cry. To scream. But he can't. Not now. He has to keep fighting. For his commander. For his comrades. He spots an American P-38 below him. He's alone now. Outnumbered. But he still dives back into the fight. It's what Kravonigic would have done. P-38s swarm around him. He's surrounded. He knows his chances are slim. But Soviet pilots don't surrender. One of them performs a steep climb, stalls in midair, and then opens fire from above. It's a difficult maneuver. The American pilot is very skilled. Shipyulya has no chance to evade. He flies straight through the burst of fire. His plane is hit multiple times. The cockpit shatters. The engine catches fire. Controls go dead. The burning wreck crashes 500 meters north of the airfield he was trying to defend. Shipyulya dies protecting his home. Another Soviet Yak is shot down by the Americans moments later. The losses are mounting. Soviet forces are frantically radioing every nearby base. They need reinforcements immediately. The battle is going badly. Racing to the scene is a fresh group of Yak-3 fighters. They're led by Captain Alexander Koldanov, an experienced pilot and future Soviet Air Force commander. Koldanov received the airfield commander's desperate call for help. But he's confused by what he's been told. "You're fighting German FW-189s, they said. But Koldanov knows the FW-189 is a reconnaissance plane. It's slow. Lightly armed. It's not used for ground attacks like this. Something doesn't add up." As he approaches the battlefield, he sees the aircraft ahead. His eyes narrow. His breath catches. That's not an FW-189. That distinctive twin-boom shape is unmistakable. He's seen intelligence photos. Recognition silhouettes. Those are American P-38s, he realizes with shock. His mind races. Why are Americans attacking a Soviet airfield? This makes no sense. They're allies. They're fighting the same enemy. Koldanov quickly abandons his attack plan. Instead, he flies alongside the American formation. He rocks his wings back and forth, the universal signal for friendly aircraft. "We are allies," he shouts into his radio, even though the Americans can't hear him. He flies close. So close he can see the American pilots in their cockpits. But instead of recognizing him, a P-38 slows down, gets behind his Yak-3, and turns to fire. "Damn it!" Koldanov curses. American bullets chase him through the sky. He breaks into evasive maneuvers. He dodges and weaves, barely escaping. The bullets pass inches from his plane. "Come on, what are you doing?" he mutters. "Look at my markings." Koldanov is frustrated. Angry. Confused. He flies straight through the middle of the battle. He's trying desperately to capture the attention of the American pilots. He wants them to see the red stars on his wings. But it doesn't work. They keep shooting at him. To them, he's just another enemy. Finally, he flies right alongside Colonel Edwinson's P-38. So close they could almost touch. Wingtip to wingtip. Edwinson glances over. For a moment, their eyes meet through the cockpit glass. Then Edwinson sees it. The red star. The Soviet marking. Clear as day. His eyes go wide. His face goes pale. A cold sense of dread travels down his spine like ice water. He looks around at the other aircraft zipping through the air. Every single one of them has red Soviet stars. Not German crosses. Not swastikas. Soviet stars. The enemy planes aren't German at all. They're Soviet. American allies. Holy shit. Edwinson screams. The realization hits him like a punch to the gut. They've been attacking their own allies. Soviet soldiers are dead. Soviet pilots are dead. Because of him. Cease fire. Cease fire. Edwinson shouts into his radio. His voice is panicked now. Desperate. They are Soviets. Everyone back to base. Now. Repeat, everyone back to base. Now. All of the P-38s immediately turn west. They flee the scene as fast as they can. Full throttle. Maximum speed. The pilots are in shock. They can't believe what just happened. They were following orders. They thought they were attacking Germans. But the Soviet yaks chased them. The Soviet pilots don't understand why the Americans suddenly turned away. They think it's a trick. A new tactic. Captain Koldanov realizes what's happening. The Americans finally understand. They know they made a mistake. He grabs his radio. All pilots, let them go. They are allies. One by one, each Soviet pilot receives the message. They break off their pursuit. They turn back toward their base. Some don't want to stop. Their friends are dead. Their base is damaged. They want revenge. But orders are orders. They obey. The terrible accident comes to an abrupt end. The sky becomes quiet. The guns fall silent. The battle is over. Smoke rises from the battlefield. Wreckage litters the ground. The cost of the mistake is clear. Colonel Edwinson and his remaining pilots fly back to their base in Italy. The flight is silent. No one speaks on the radio. Each pilot is alone with his thoughts. Replaying the battle. Seeing the red stars. Understanding what they did. They land one by one. When Edwinson climbs out of his cockpit, his hands are shaking. His legs are weak. He feels sick. 3 of his men are dead. They died fighting allies. Friends. People on the same side. Ground crew run up, excited to hear about the mission. They see Edwinson's face and stop. Something is wrong. Terribly wrong. On the Soviet side, the losses are even worse. Multiple pilots killed. Krivonigic. Shipulya. Others. Many soldiers on the ground dead or wounded. Vehicles destroyed. The airfield damaged. The convoy that was celebrating is now a graveyard. Bodies lie in the road. Burned trucks smolder. The flags are stained with blood. All because of a tragic mistake. The incident is reported up both chains of command. Soviet high command is furious. Some Soviet leaders believe this was a deliberate attack, not an accident. The Americans attacked us on purpose, some say. This is betrayal. For a brief moment, the fallout threatens to spiral out of control. The alliance between America and the Soviet Union is tested. The relationship is fragile. If Stalin decides this was intentional, the consequences could be enormous. The alliance could break. The war effort could be damaged. But cooler heads prevail. The United States admits the mistake quickly. They don't try to hide it. They don't make excuses. They send an explanatory letter to the Soviets. The letter sets out the chain of events. It explains why the Americans thought they were fighting Germans. The target area was misidentified. The intelligence was wrong. The maps were inaccurate. The pilots were following orders based on faulty information. It was a terrible accident, not an act of aggression. The American government expresses deep regret. They offer condolences for the Soviet losses. They promise to improve coordination to prevent future incidents. The Soviets eventually accept this explanation. They understand that mistakes happen in war. The fog of battle is real. The incident is closed. The alliance continues. The war goes on. But the scars remain. Soviet pilots remember. American pilots remember. The families of the dead remember. Over the years, the Soviet account of the incident was released. Soviet historians wrote about it extensively. They interviewed the surviving pilots. Captain Koldanov told his story many times. The story became somewhat known in Russia. Soviet records name the pilots. Krivonogik. Shipulya. Others. They're remembered as heroes who died defending their airfield from attack. But on the American side, information remains very scarce. Very few details have ever been publicly released. The official records are minimal. Names are withheld. Full accounts are missing. Many historians believe that the full account of the incident has been kept secret. They think the complete records remain classified to this day. According to some reports, these documents won't be released until 100 years after the event. That would be 2044. Still decades away. Why the secrecy? We can only guess. Perhaps the American military was embarrassed by the mistake. Such a serious error reflects poorly on intelligence gathering and command decisions. It raises uncomfortable questions about how missions were planned and executed. Perhaps there were intelligence failures worse than publicly admitted. Maybe the maps were even more inaccurate. Maybe the briefing was so poor it bordered on negligence. Maybe warning signs were ignored. Perhaps there may have been political reasons to hide the full story. The American public strongly supported the Soviet alliance in 1944. News of American pilots killing dozens of Soviet soldiers could have damaged that support at a critical time in the war. There's also the question of accountability. Were officers punished for this mistake? Were procedures changed? Were safeguards put in place to prevent similar incidents? We don't know. The classified files might tell us. Or they might not. Until 2044, when the 100-year classification period potentially ends, we can only speculate based on the limited information available. The incident on November 7, 1944, teaches us important lessons about war, communication, and human error. First, the fog of war is real and dangerous. In combat, mistakes happen with terrifying frequency. Soldiers make split-second decisions with incomplete information. Sometimes those decisions are catastrophically wrong. Pilots flying at high speed and altitude can't always see markings clearly. Red stars can look like other symbols from thousands of feet up. In the chaos of battle, with adrenaline pumping and threats everywhere, identification becomes extremely difficult. Second, friendly fire is a constant danger throughout history. Better communication and identification systems can reduce these incidents, but they can't eliminate them completely. Even with modern technology like GPS, IFF transponders, and satellite communications, friendly fire still occurs in contemporary conflicts. In the Gulf War, friendly fire caused 23% of American combat deaths. In Afghanistan and Iraq, similar tragedies continued. The problem is as old as warfare itself. As long as humans fight wars, humans will make mistakes. Third, even the strongest alliances can be fragile. The United States and Soviet Union were partners against Nazi Germany. They had a common enemy. A shared goal. But this incident shows how quickly that partnership could have fallen apart over a misunderstanding. If Soviet leadership had decided this was a deliberate attack rather than an accident, the consequences could have been enormous. The alliance might have fractured at a critical moment. The war might have taken a very different turn. Germany might have survived longer. The Cold War that followed World War II proved that American-Soviet cooperation was temporary and fragile. This incident in 1944 was an early warning sign of the tensions that would eventually divide these two nations. Fourth, the importance of accurate intelligence cannot be overstated. This entire tragedy stemmed from poor intelligence. Inaccurate maps. Vague target descriptions. Incomplete information about friendly force locations. Modern military forces invest heavily in intelligence gathering for exactly this reason. Satellites. Reconnaissance aircraft. Real-time data sharing. These technologies exist because of lessons learned from tragedies like November 7, 1944. Behind every statistic is a human being. A person with hopes and dreams and a family waiting for them at home. Second Lieutenant Eldon Coulson crashed 1 kilometer from the Soviet airfield, trying desperately to pull out of his dive. He was 23 years old. From a small town in Ohio. His parents received a telegram, "We regret to inform you that your son died heroically in combat." They never knew the full story. They never knew he was killed by Soviet anti-aircraft guns while attacking Soviet forces. They never knew the mission was based on faulty intelligence. Second Lieutenant Philip Brewer was trapped in his spinning, burning P-38. He was 22 years old. From Kansas. His younger brother was also serving in the European theater. The family lost one son and prayed desperately that the other would make it home. His brother survived the war and lived to old age, but never knew exactly what happened to Philip that day. The details were never shared. The first American pilot, shot down by German flak before they even reached the valley, never got a chance to bail out. His name isn't in the public records. The full roster of pilots on that mission remains classified. But he was someone's son. Someone's brother. Someone's friend. His family received the same vague telegram about dying heroically in combat. Lieutenant Kravonigic was killed by his own side's anti-aircraft fire. Friendly fire. He died trying to defend his airfield from what he thought were German attackers, only to be shot down by Soviet guns. His wingman Shipulya watched him fall and then died himself moments later, killed by American fire while trying to avenge his commander. Both Soviet pilots were heroes in every sense. They flew against overwhelming odds. They protected their comrades. They did their duty with courage and skill. They deserved better than to die in such a senseless tragedy. The Soviet soldiers in the convoy never had a chance. They were celebrating the most important holiday in their nation's history. Singing. Dancing. Happy. Believing the war was almost over and they'd soon go home. Then American bullets cut them down without warning. Young men who survived years of brutal warfare on the Eastern Front, who survived Stalingrad and Kursk, killed in seconds by friendly fire from their own allies. These men weren't enemies. They were allies. They should have been fighting together, not against each other. They should have met as friends, celebrating victory together when Germany fell. To fully understand this incident, we need to understand the strategic situation in late 1944. The war was going well for the Allies, but Germany was far from defeated. German forces were retreating on all fronts but remained dangerous and well organized. The Balkans were contested territory where German, Soviet, Yugoslav partisan, and other forces all operated. American air power was conducting a strategic campaign to cut German supply lines and destroy German reinforcements. Every convoy destroyed, every airfield damaged, helped shorten the war and saved Allied lives. But coordination between the different Allied forces was extremely difficult. They didn't have modern communication systems. No satellite phones. No GPS. No real-time data sharing between American and Soviet command structures. American pilots received their briefings hours before takeoff. The information was often outdated by the time they reached their targets. Maps were sometimes inaccurate, especially in the Balkans where cartography was incomplete. Intelligence was fragmentary and unreliable. Soviet forces were advancing rapidly through Yugoslavia, liberating territory at a pace of dozens of kilometers per day. The front lines changed constantly. What was German-held territory yesterday might be Soviet-held today. What was an enemy position in the morning might be occupied by friendly forces by afternoon. Add to this the language barrier. American pilots didn't speak Russian. Soviet soldiers didn't speak English. Recognition signals weren't standardized between the two allies. Radio frequencies weren't shared. There was no way for ground forces to directly communicate with aircraft overhead. The Americans and Soviets were also using very different aircraft. American pilots were extensively trained to recognize German planes like the Me-109, FW-190, and FW-189. But they had limited knowledge of Soviet aircraft. The Yak-9 and Yak-3 were not well known in the West. Recognition silhouettes and photos were scarce. From altitude, the twin-boom design of both the P-38 and some German aircraft could create confusion. Similarly, from the ground, Soviet gunners unfamiliar with the P-38's distinctive shape might mistake it for a German twin-boom reconnaissance plane. All of these factors combined to create the perfect conditions for tragedy. It wasn't just one mistake. It was a cascade of small failures in intelligence, communication, training, and coordination that combined into disaster. History often turns on small moments and individual decisions. What if things had gone differently on November 7, 1944? What if Captain Koldanov had not arrived when he did? The battle might have continued for much longer. More deaths on both sides. More destruction. The casualties could have been double or triple what actually occurred. What if Soviet High Command had decided it was a deliberate attack rather than an accident? Stalin was paranoid and deeply suspicious of Western intentions. He might have believed the Americans deliberately attacked Soviet forces as a warning or act of aggression. The alliance could have fractured immediately. Soviet forces might have stopped coordinating with American operations. Intelligence sharing could have ended. Joint operations could have been cancelled. Germany might have been able to exploit the division. The war in Europe might have lasted months longer. Hundreds of thousands more people might have died. What if the Americans had better intelligence? If the briefing had been accurate, with correct maps and updated information about Soviet positions, none of this would have happened. The mission would have found actual German targets or returned to base without incident. What if there had been better communication systems between Allied forces? If the Americans knew Soviet forces were operating in that valley, they never would have attacked. A single radio message could have prevented everything. What if Soviet soldiers had different colored flags? Red flags and red Soviet stars, seen from altitude by pilots expecting to see enemy forces, might not have registered as friendly symbols. Different colored identification panels might have been recognized immediately. Small changes could have prevented this tragedy entirely. Or could have made it catastrophically worse. This incident highlights how primitive military technology was in 1944 compared to today's standards. Modern military forces have GPS for precise navigation. Satellite communications for instant information sharing. IFF, identification friend or foe, systems that automatically identify friendly aircraft and vehicles. Real-time data sharing between all forces in a battle space. American pilots today can see exactly where friendly forces are located on digital maps that update in real time. They have multiple redundant systems to verify targets. They have encrypted radio communications with ground controllers who can confirm or deny engagement decisions. But even with all this modern technology, friendly fire still happens with disturbing regularity. In 1994, American F-15 fighters shot down 2 American Black Hawk helicopters over Iraq, killing all 26 people aboard. The IFF systems weren't working properly. The pilots misidentified the helicopters as enemy aircraft. Multiple layers of safeguards all failed simultaneously. In 2002, American aircraft bombed Canadian troops in Afghanistan, killing 4 soldiers and wounding 8 others. The Canadians were conducting a training exercise and fired weapons that were misidentified as enemy fire. In the Iraq War, numerous friendly fire incidents occurred despite advanced technology. British vehicles were attacked by American aircraft. American soldiers were killed by other American units. Technology reduces mistakes but cannot eliminate them completely. Human error remains a constant factor. Confusion remains. Fear remains. The fog of war remains. Perhaps the lesson is that war itself is the fundamental problem. As long as humans fight wars, tragedies like November 7, 1944 will continue to happen, regardless of technology. The story of when America fought the Soviets in World War II is not well known. It's not taught in schools. It's not in most history books. Most people have never heard of it. But it's an important story that deserves to be remembered. It shows us the reality of war. The confusion. The fear. The split-second decisions that can't be taken back. The terrible cost of mistakes. Colonel Edwinson lived with that day for the rest of his life. He made the best decision he could with the information he had. He followed his orders. He attacked what he believed were enemy targets. But 3 of his men died. And many Soviet allies died too. Was he to blame? Was the intelligence officer who gave the wrong briefing to blame? Was the system that failed to coordinate Allied movements to blame? Was anyone specifically to blame? War is complicated. Sometimes there are no clear answers. Sometimes good people make terrible mistakes with tragic consequences. What we can say with certainty is this: on November 7, 1944, American and Soviet forces fought each other by mistake. Men died on both sides. Families grieved. And for a brief, terrifying moment, the alliance that would ultimately win World War II hung in the balance. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed. Diplomacy worked. The war continued. The alliance held together. 6 months later, in May 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The war in Europe was over. American and Soviet soldiers met at the Elbe River in Germany and shook hands. They embraced. They celebrated their hard-won victory together. They shared food and vodka and cigarettes. For a brief moment, it seemed like the American-Soviet partnership might continue into peacetime. But within 2 years, the Cold War began. The Allies became adversaries. The friendship turned to suspicion and hostility. But on that day in May 1945, they were still friends. Still allies. The tragedy of November 7, 1944 had been forgiven, if not forgotten. The incident was buried in classified files. Hidden from public view. Only those who were there knew the full truth, and most of them never spoke about it. But it happened. It was real. And it stands as a permanent reminder that war is chaos. That mistakes happen. That good people die for bad reasons. That even allies can become enemies through misunderstanding and poor communication. This is the story of when America fought the Soviets in World War II. A story of brave men on both sides doing their duty. A story of tragic mistakes and terrible consequences. A story of how close we came to disaster. A story that should never be forgotten. This story is based on the actual historical incident that occurred on November 7, 1944, near Niš, Yugoslavia, now Serbia. The basic facts are documented. American P-38 Lightning fighters mistakenly attacked Soviet forces, resulting in casualties on both sides. Soviet accounts provide many details about pilots like Krivonigic, Shipulya, and Koldanov. American records remain largely classified. The dialogue and some personal details have been reconstructed based on available sources and historical context. This tragic incident serves as a powerful reminder of the fog of war and the devastating human cost of military mistakes.